Who is the X factor for this Florida team going into the 2025 season? Now, the obvious answer is Dallas Wilson. I mean, sorry, not why did I say Dallas Wilson? Sorry, it is DJ Lagway. I mean, if Lagway's throwing for 5,000 yards or 4,000 yards, I mean, and 40 touchdowns, the Gators are going to have a really good football team and win a lot of games. But outside of Dallas Wilson, I mean, why did I say that? I'm sorry. Outside of DJ Lagway, who is the player that could be the X factor? I mean, it might just be Dallas Wilson, the 5-star receiver that went for 10 catches, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the spring game. A lot of hype for him. If Dallas Wilson can become a wide receiver 1 in his freshman season, which we saw it last year for like Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams, or even a Cam Coleman at Auburn and a Nick Marsh at Michigan State. So it's like, saw a lot of really good freshman wide receiver last year. And could Dallas Wilson be like that? Maybe. Could it be a J. Michael Sturdivant? I think that's an interesting name right there. Receiver transfer from UCLA. Was at Cal also year prior. Is a guy that has that NFL potential with that big 6'3" size and pretty fast player there. Could he be the player that ends up being the difference for this Gator team? If we need that receiver that Lagway can count on, he's going to throw it deep on, or if it's going to be a third down that he knows can get open, or a player that he knows can get open deep, and he's just going to have to trust his receiver to get open. Is it J. Michael Sturdivant? Is it Jaden Ball? We saw a lot of good things from Ball. Went over 600 yards and 7 touchdowns last year, mostly in a backup role and splitting carries. I mean, that's the thing with our running back room. It's not really going to be one true running back. It's going to be a 2-headed monster at the very minimum. And could it be Ball and Jackson if they're both really good with this great offensive line we're projected to have? I mean, what if Ball and Jacoby Jackson both go for near 1,000 yards or both go over 1,000 yards? I mean, we're talking about one of the best run games in the country, and we know Lagway has the mobility if his hamstring is healthy. So what if you have 2 elite running backs and you have DJ Lagway is also able to be a very mobile QB? I mean, he had over 1,000 rushing yards his senior year of high school. I mean, we know Lagway has that mobility. Could it be Amir Jackson, who we talked about earlier, the redshirt freshman tight end who was a top 100 player? I mean, you look at LSU last year, they had Mason Taylor, who was, it's a third down. Who does Garrett Nussmeier trust to get open 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 yards down the field? It was Mason Taylor, and Mason Taylor was a really good tight end. Could Amir Jackson be like that for the Gators? And could Amir Jackson stretch the field for us? I think that's something that could really change it. But I think the X factor on offense, I think we have the talent. The bigger problem or question is the coaching. Is Billy Napier going to be able to call the plays, or is Russ Callaway calling plays? And are they able to scheme open our players? Are they able to keep Lagway healthy in the pocket and open run lanes? I mean, we know Billy can scheme open the run lanes. He's had a really good run scheme here in his time at Florida, so it's like I don't think that's really the issue. But can he get the pass game working? I think we saw a good bit last year with Lagway at the end of the season, and I think we have a higher floor with Lagway than most people realize. Because I think they see 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and they say, oh, very inconsistent QB who turned over the ball a lot and didn't score many touchdowns. But I think something you have to remember is Lagway had like 6 or 7 touchdowns or plays where his receivers, like on deep passes, were tackled inside the 5. I mean, if you remember that Kentucky game where Jaden Ball went for 5 rushing touchdowns, I think there was probably like 3 plays there where our receivers were tackled inside like that 5 in the 1 even yard line. Happened against LSU as well. So yeah, like, I mean, that's a couple more touchdowns there. That's instead of 12, you could be talking about Lagway having 16 touchdowns, which could be a pretty big difference. And you also look at Lagway having 9 interceptions. He had 7 turnover-worthy plays. last year. So he had more interceptions than he had turnover worthy plays. So like there were some picks, and I'm pretty sure one of those turnover worthy plays was a Hail Mary. So it's like so sometimes even those numbers and data points could be skewed. So I think you have a pretty high floor with Lagway with his deep ball that's going to work at times. It's going to work at least once or twice a game, and you can have your criticism about Lagway, but I think even his floor is still really good. And like unless he's insanely injured, then you can have a different conversation. But I mean, I think the X factor really with the offense is Billy Napier and the play calling. Although I'm not as much as of a hater on the play calling as a lot of people are. I mean, one person missing a block and you now being on a third and medium isn't a play calling thing. You know, you have a player miss a block. That's a player thing. I mean, you're not going to win every play. Or a receiver dropping a ball, or Jermaine Dike tipping the ball up for an interception. Well, that's another one of Lagway's interceptions where he threw it to Dike, hits him in the hands, goes up, and Ole Miss linebacker T.J. Saunders ends up making a diving pick. And, so it's like, I think the offensive play calling, it's not perfect, obviously. I think it's a bit overhated, but it could also just not be. I could just be wrong. And that's why I think it is the X factor on the offense. But now you look at the defense. I think there's one player here that's like the pretty easy answer for me. But I'll start with like a Jordan Castell at safety. If you get Castell playing his best, like we've seen it multiple times this season, where he probably plays like in a 3 or 4 game stretch, like an elite safety. If you can get that for most of the season instead of the little part of the season, then you're having a really good safety that could shore up that backfield. And it's like, if Devin Moore could stay healthy, that's also a major X factor for this team. Or, maybe Cormani McClain becomes that 5-star corner he was out of high school and ends up playing like it. Elite frame. He's put some weight on. People are really talking about him, but I'm a bit more hesitant than most are on Cormani McClain. I'm a bigger fan of Dijon, and I don't think that's a big issue because I really like Dijon Johnson there. The linebackers, maybe it's even Miles Graham, highly rated guy. I think an elite linebacker could shore up an entire defense because you're getting something from his leadership and you're getting something for his play that maybe your defensive line messes up, but you have that linebacker shooting through the B gap and can still make that play. But I think the biggest X factor is Caleb Banks. I've talked a lot about Caleb Banks. Actually, can I pull up? Do I still have this? I don't think I still have these rankings. But I know we recently, or a month ago, it's been so long now it feels, but a month or so ago, we had our top 10 player rankings for the 2025 season. I think I had Caleb Banks at number 1. So I'm obviously really high on Banks. I'm pretty sure Natuno also had Banks at like 3 or 4. So we're both already really high on Banks. A lot of that hype, though, for that elite level play for Banks is coming off that elite stretch that he played. Really starting at the LSU game and the bid against Ole Miss before he got injured. And did he get injured at Ole Miss or FSU game? I can't remember, but there's people talking about Caleb Banks as a potential top 10 draft pick in the 2026 NFL draft. If you're getting a top 10 pick, Caleb Banks, then I think this defensive line is going to be elite because we already know Tyreek Sapp is a really good player. Could Tyreek Sapp also take another step and maybe also become an elite player? Yes, but I think you have a higher floor with Sapp and maybe a lower ceiling. I mean, Sapp is also a projected first-round pick in a lot of mock drafts, so it's like he also has a pretty high ceiling. But I think Banks has like top 5 pick ceiling, although I think Sapp probably can maybe counts out at like top 15. So I think there's a difference there that could really change up this defense. And Caleb Banks could definitely stop the run game a good bit. And you have some issues with the depth that defensive line. And you go look back at the 2022 season, Gervon Dexter, where Gervon Dexter had to play so many snaps because you had a lack of depth. I think Caleb Banks could be better than Dexter, and I think the depth is a little bit better to where he's not going to have to play as many, but you can get in those fewer snaps, but you can get a higher level of play that can really change a game around. I mean, that game against LSU was just one of the best defensive line performances you'll ever see out of a defensive line. And it was against an offensive line that had allowed, 7 sacks all season, and they end up giving 7 up in that one game. So I think Caleb Banks is the X factor because it's going to open up room for a Jamari Lyons or Mekhi Barrow to also play well, and Sapp and Gums and LJ McCray off the line. LJ McCray is another name that I haven't mentioned that is also an X factor. Former 5-star, 3 of the 4 recruiting services had him as a top 10 player. So it's like LJ McCray has that high level talent. You know, was a freshman last year. You saw him play a pretty decent bit. Maybe didn't have the flashes that you would have hoped, but you're hoping he takes that year 2 jump and is going to get more playing time. And playing behind George Gums, a guy who I think Gums could sneakily lead the team in sacks. Doesn't necessarily mean he's the best player, but he could rack up those sacks because they're focusing so much on a Sapp and Banks that it just leaves Gums 1-on-1 or 1-on-none. And he's able to rack up a bunch of different little sacks.